Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Dynasty podcast presented by Fantasyholics. Today, we're going to go over some Fantasy Dynasty darlings here. We're going to talk about some candidates to buy in the Dynasty format, some players to trade for, and then also next week we're going to go for some players to trade away. So put these two together. We'll be talking about who to trade away and who to trade for. And Bo, why don't you kick us off with the quarterbacks?
Yeah. So I mean, again, this is 2 episodes where this is just Brant and myself kind of throwing out some names that we think are guys that are kind of slept on a little bit, maybe a little less hyped up than they should be. And then I think both Brant and I kind of gave you some ideas of players you could kind of trade to try to acquire these guys. So the first one, and I think, again, what we're going to do is we're both going to give you a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end that you could go out and target. That could be somebody that if you're sitting at a position, you're a little weak at quarterback, maybe a little weak at tight end. Maybe this is something where you can get some ideas or some motivations. My quarterback that I want to talk about is a guy that is often slept on. He's been in the league for 10 years, and of his 10 years of being in the league, he's been a quarterback 13 or better six seasons. Okay, and this is none other than Kirk Cousins. He substantiates Justin Jefferson as a top 10 wideout. He substantiates Adam Thielen as one of the best red zone wideouts in football. And honestly, he's got a great run game in Dalvin Cook when Dalvin Cook's healthy. And even when Dalvin Cook's out, Alexander Mattison picks up the slack well. The division should be wide open for grabs. And Kirk Cousins is a guy that last year, matter of fact, the last 2 years, he's been quarterback 11 in PPR formats. So he's right there on the cusp of, in a 12-man league, he is a quarterback 1. In, a 10-man league, he's right outside of being a quarterback 1. And he's a guy that if you want somebody to stream potentially matchup wise, last year he was over 25 points in over half of his games. He threw a touchdown pass in every single game he played in. Was over 200 yards passing in all but 3 games last year. This is just a guy that, if you need to pick him up, whether maybe you're a Deshaun Watson owner and you're looking for that guy to be your potential, handcuff or replacement to Watson if Watson happens to miss time, or maybe you're just a person who's, got a lot of youth at quarterback and you're needing something a little more consistent. Kirk Cousins is that guy. And right now his trade value is really kind of tied to like a late second round rookie draft pick. Sorry, words are hard. Or a future second round pick. So he's relatively inexpensive. You could get Kirk Cousins in a league where maybe somebody's got 3 quarterbacks and they're weak at wide receiver, trading away a guy like maybe an Anthony Schwartz from Cleveland or a Devontae Parker type player, somebody who's we're not really sure what their season's going to look like. You could get a fringe quarterback 1 for somebody like that. And I think Kirk Cousins is a guy that gets little to no respect, and he deserves significantly more.
Absolutely. Kirk Cousins is always a guy that's always up there, and in redraft leagues, he's always one of those guys that is always going to help carry you, or not carry you, but always help bridge that quarterback leeway if you miss out on the big names. The guy I got, he's going into his 14th year. This is one of your favorite guys, and in 13 seasons total, he's only finished outside of QB1 4 times. And he's going into a situation this year behind probably one of the best offensive lines he's ever been behind. He probably has the best running game to help load up the boxes and free up. He's definitely doesn't have the best wide receiver he's ever had. But Matt Ryan's going into Indy, and this guy right here, and he might be sitting on your waivers in a 1 QB league. He's probably sitting on your waivers. In a Superflex leagues, you could trade pretty much your last round pick in your rookie draft to go pick this guy up. This guy is a bridge quarterback to definitely help you out this year. My guess is he's probably going to finish top 10 at least, maybe right outside. I mean, he's not going to give you the cute little rushing upside that you see, but he's always right there. He definitely, spreads the ball out real nicely. He always seems to score fantasy points for you. He's just a definitely good bridge quarterback, or like you said, a backup quarterback if you got a Watson that you're not too sure about, or you're sitting there with the Trey Lance that you're not too 100% sure exactly what San Francisco is going to be doing with them. Or if you're one of the unlucky ones and you're starting Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold or rolling the dice on one of these rookies and you need that bridge quarterback, because if you look, like we talked about, most of these rookies are going to be sitting a year. Well, Matt Ryan's a guy that you could trade away your last rookie pick and have that bridge quarterback into your next year. And he's going to be fairly cheap. And like I said, 4 years out of 13 fantasy seasons he's finished outside of a QB1 numbers.
Absolutely. Matt Ryan's got a soft spot in my heart and always will. I'm super, super excited for him to get out and be out of the shadow of the Atlanta rebuild. The last maybe year and a half, 2 years of Matt Ryan's career have kind of been a little down fantasy-wise, and I think a lot of that's to do with where Atlanta's been. The defense has been bad. The offensive line was among the worst in football. And so it's definitely nice to see Matt Ryan get out, get some protection, have probably the best defense he's ever played with as well. He's definitely a great player in crunch time, been a lot of game-winning drives. And, I'm not saying he's going to be a fantasy, a championship winner for you. But if you've got a good team and quarterback's your only weakness and you can plug somebody in like him who, is going to be a safe play for you, going to average you maybe 20, 25 points a game, I don't think you can have any complaints with that.
Absolutely.
Hit us with your running back, Walker.
All right, with my running back, this guy, he's going into his second year. Last year he missed all season with Liz Frank injury, which is an 8 to 10 month recovery time frame, and it's been over a year since he's seen the field. He actually was cleared to come back at the end of last year, but the Jags sat him down and went ahead and said, no, we're just going to let you sit out there. We're not playing for anything. And the guy that was leading the rushers for the Jags, James Robinson, tore his Achilles, I believe it was week 14 of last season. That's a 12 to 14 month recovery. I know Cam Akers came back in the same year. Well, that was kind of a fluke, and really did he look like he was Cam Akers when he came back? I'm talking about Travis Etienne. This guy racked up 102 receptions for 1,155 yards in college with his quarterback of Trevor Lawrence. I believe he had him 3 out of the 4 years there.
I think that's
so.
Right.
And he's getting reunited with Trevor Lawrence. You already know Trevor Lawrence trusts this guy coming out of the backfield. Travis Etienne, he's getting a full offseason. He's been cleared. He's getting that full offseason work with all of the new coaching staff with Trevor Lawrence. And the only person that's really sitting there barking up his tree is Snoop Connor.
Did they really have a real coach last year?
Well, they had a party coach. But, I mean,
can we just all be in agreement? Sorry, not to cut you off here, but this is something I'm a little passionate about. Can we all just be in agreement? Like, everything that happened fantasy-wise in Jacksonville last year, we have to throw that out the window because Urban Meyer is nothing more than a gimmicky college coach.
But he got Carlos Hyde.
Well, if you're a huge supporter of Ohio State football and the Buckeyes, I've got no dog in the fight. I'm not a Michigan guy, so I don't care. But Urban Meyer is not an NFL head coach. When you're kicking your kicker during warm-ups, I mean, it showed when you go up to a game and say, man, it's like playing Alabama every week. No kidding, Urban. It's like playing Alabama. These are professionals. Yeah. All right, rant. Sorry, rant.
But with Travis Etienne, I openly just gave up a late first-round draft pick in this year's rookie draft. There's not probably the only better running back coming out this year is probably Breece Hall would be my guess. And if you don't have the one-on-one, you're probably not getting Breece Hall. So really, mid to late first-round draft pick is what I'm willing to give up for a Travis Etienne. I absolutely love what he's bringing to the table there in Jacksonville. And like I said, the trust is already there with his quarterback, and Snoop Connor's the only thing sitting behind him.
Yeah, Etienne's a guy that I also traded for in a dynasty league this offseason, a separate one, obviously not the same one, because you wouldn't have been able to trade for him, and I trade for him in that dynasty.
And you were huge on Etienne coming out last year.
There was pieces of me last year that wanted to take Etienne over Najee Harris. You remember I battled that a little bit.
Yes.
Obviously went with Najee, and I'm very happy I did. But Etienne's a guy that I look for to have a big coming out this year. So My running back is also an overhyped rookie, a guy that a lot of people fell subject to his landing spot. I'm talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was a guy that a lot of people had as like the third or fourth best running back in his draft class behind Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins. But he got drafted in that first round to go be with Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of people's eyes lit up. Drafted a lot higher than he probably should have been. He just was on a podcast last week with something to do with a Chiefs podcast, and kind of came out and said that the reason he was so bad last year was that he'd had gallbladder surgery in the offseason. He was down to 160 pounds at one point and was just battling back from that all year last year. And you're talking about a guy that if you're in a dynasty league that's been standing for a few years, this is a guy that somebody's probably drafted either really high in a rookie draft pick or rookie draft or in a startup draft. If it happened to be that year, somebody may have taken him real early, and now they're maybe potentially wanting to get out of it. And this could be a gamble that you could be willing to take. His value's honestly pretty low right now because he hasn't come out and done a whole lot. In his 2 seasons in the league, granted one of the years he was hurt, but he's never finished better than the running back 22 in PPR. Last year he played in about 9 games, and he finishes the RB 45 in PPR last year. So you're talking about a guy of 10 games last year, 13 his rookie year. You're talking about a guy that if somebody, like I said, invested like a first round or 1 overall or 2 overall in a rookie draft and missed out on, Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift, maybe they're wanting to get out of him and get some value back. This is a guy that you could get for a late first round pick in the rookie draft or an early second with a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, who's in a loaded backfield now. That's about where Clyde Edwards-Helaire's value is. I know it's wild to say this because just not long ago people were talking about, is he the consensus 101 in dynasty startups before we saw what he looked like on the field. But I'm definitely willing to take a gamble and a flyer on a guy if I can get him for the right price in that Kansas City offense, who's still young. He's coming out saying there was a reason he was as bad as he was last year. Do we give him the benefit of the doubt? They didn't really add anything besides Ronald Jones there this year that really scares me. And, Ronald Jones was inconsistent at his best in Tampa Bay. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire's got a chance to be the guy if, he comes back and he's healthy and he does what he needs to do. You're talking about a guy who could be a top 15 back this year that you could get for a late first. And I know those rookie picks are alluring. It's they're attractive. It's fun to get that young guy to be invested in. But you're talking about the youngest running back in his draft class when he came out, and a guy who's still young, only going into his 3rd year. You could still get a young player. And if if you're sitting at the 108, when it's James Cook or, potentially flip that pick for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I like the landing spot better. The running backs that are on the roster with him are better to steal carries away from James Cook than they would be of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And it's a guy I'm willing to take a gamble on for the right price.
Absolutely. This is a guy here that Patrick Mahomes came out and said, I want this guy. This is who I want you to draft. This is who I want. So obviously Mahomes has to trust him. Mahomes wants to keep him around. And look at all the targets that are now vacated there too. And let's just look. I mean, I know it was a 1-game sample size, but look what he did in that very first game he ever played as a pro. Pretty sure it was 2 touchdowns and 100 yards rushing.
1 touchdown, 25 attempts, 138 yards for 5.5 yards of carry. And you got to remember, yes, they played Houston, but in 2020, Houston's defense was still pretty good.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, this is a guy that has shown plenty of flashes that he can do it. And if you're giving up a late first, an early second, and a Ramondre Stevenson, who once again is in a New England backfield, what do you really want to do with him? So, yeah, absolutely. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is definitely a guy that I would be willing to take a risk on.
I'll start us off on wide receivers here, and I'm going to talk about a guy who's getting up there in age. So when you talk about a guy getting up there in age, it's a little intimidating sometimes trading for a wide receiver in Dynasty. But this guy's 28 years of age. He's got 8 years of experience going into his 9th season. And out of his 8 years, he's only finished as outside of a top 20 wide receiver twice. Once was his rookie season and once was in 2019. But he's also a guy that if you take out the 1 year, which is last year that he finished as wide receiver 20 in PPR formats, He's only been outside of the top 15 one more additional time, and that was wide receiver 16. So you're talking about a fringe wide receiver 1 here. This guy has also been over the 1,000-yard mark in 6 of his 8 seasons, one of which being last year with Davis Mills as his quarterback. And I'm talking about Brandon Cooks. Yes, they just added John Mechie out of Alabama, but he's coming off an injury. Don't know how he's going to start. And then all you got outside of that is Nico Collins. The run game is not going to be great. Start off, you got Marlon Mack and Damian Pierce there. But you're going into year 2 of Davis Mills, who's established a little bit of rapport with some of his wide receivers. And Brandon Cooks is a guy that I'm definitely willing to take a gamble on here. 28 years of age, like I said. Typically, the year you want to start trying to move away from wide receivers in Dynasty is about 31, 30, that age there. And yes, I know Brandon Cooks has had some concussion history or whatever, but he's only played less than 14 games once in his career, and that was his rookie year in 2014. Other than that, he's played 14 games or more, which is pretty good out of your wide receiver position. I know it's not great, but it's pretty good. And this is a guy, like I said, you're getting a 1,000-yard receiver. You know, last year in that Houston offense, he had 134 targets with 90 receptions. And he's not a guy that relies heavily on touchdowns. He only had 6 last year, and he was the wide receiver 20. So if he gets 1 or 2 more touchdowns, you're talking about a strong possibility of this guy being a wide receiver 1. And I'll be honest, when I looked into his stats, I didn't know they were that good because he's not somebody I pay attention to, especially not being in Houston with Davis Mills. I just wasn't looking at him. And this is another guy whose trade value is low enough right now that an early second-round pick and a fringe player gets this done. If you want to just straight up trade a pick, you could probably get it done with the player who's got Brandon Cooks if they don't know his value for a second-round pick straight up and not have to throw another player in there. But his value as a whole is down, and it should not be. He's a guy that is 100% could come in and be like one of the best wide receiver 2s in football, in fantasy football at least, let alone potentially some weeks be a wide receiver 1 for you. So he's a guy, again, that if you know, you're sitting there in the second round and you need a wideout and you're not sold on, you know, George Pickens or Jahan Dotson or something like that, and the Brandon Cooks owner is willing to take a gamble on one of those young wideouts, I wouldn't hesitate to flip my second round pick for Brandon Cooks. I mean, that's just my opinion on him, but
definitely, absolutely. Brandon Cooks is a guy that he always seems to fly under the radar in redraft, dynasty, everything else. Like you said, yeah, he's 28, so you're still going to get a few more good years out of him. This guy is definitely a guy I wouldn't mind owning. And we saw flashes of David Mills doing good things. I mean, let's look at Week 17 at San Francisco, and San Francisco wasn't a slouch defense last year at all. He had Brandon Cooks had 11 targets, 7 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. 21 fantasy points. And you're telling me you can flip a second-round pick, possibly put this guy in your flex? Absolutely. I absolutely love this. And like I said, Houston's going to be playing from behind a lot. Their defense got better, but not much better. So, I mean, Brandon Cooks is a guy that they're going to have to rely on quite a bit. So, definitely, if you can flip a second or a fringe player for him, that's great. Start low on him and see how that goes with him, or see how that goes when you're working that trade, because you may be able to get this guy for a third-round pick if who owns him doesn't realize the value they actually have in Brandon Cooks.
And that happens more often than you think, where, you know, if somebody's got, you know, 2 really good wide receivers and a couple of really good running backs, maybe they don't pay attention to their bench as good as they should. We all know, yes, you have some dynasty leagues that are more competitive than others, but there's also a lot of dynasty leagues where people don't pay attention in the off season. They don't pay attention to news and rumors and things. They pick their phone up, you know, 2 days before the rookie draft, and then they put it down, you know, after championship week's over, as far as looking at their lineup and things like that. So it's a possibility, but again, you also may be looking at somebody who owns him and knows what he's worth, and maybe you don't want to overpay what they want you to pay. So it's just all of these are it's all subject to change when we bring up these guys, because the value is dependent on who owns them.
Absolutely. So with my next one, I'm going to talk about actually 2 guys that are buy candidates for me. With one trade, both things have drastically changed. So The first one I'm going to talk about is Marquise Brown. He's going into a place where there's over Hollywood. He's going in a place where there's over 100 targets that was vacated with Christian Kirk leaving and with Chase Edmonds leaving. That's not talking about the first 6 weeks. He's going to be without DeAndre Hopkins. He's getting reunited with Kyler Murray. Yeah, I know Kyler Murray's missing OTAs or whatever's going on out there in Arizona with Kyler Murray. But we all know Kyler Murray's going to be the starting quarterback there in Arizona. They're going to do whatever they can to put him on the field. They wouldn't have went out and got one of his buddies if so. So this guy here, I mean, he was paired with Lamar Jackson, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute with how we feel about Lamar Jackson. But, I mean, he's going in. He's going to have the ample opportunity to help stretch the field, or to be able to stretch the field with his speed. He's going to be able to cover it over the middle. I mean, he's finished inside the top 30 with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. Every single year he's been in the league. So, I mean, this guy, now he finally gets a chance to have a decent quarterback that has – I don't want to say he's got much. He does have a better arm than Lamar, but I mean, he does also scramble out. But I mean, he's finished as wide receiver 22, and I guess he finishes 36 in 2020. So, but in 2021, he finished as wide receiver 22, playing in 16 games. He had 145 targets and only 6 touchdowns. He's going to get ample opportunity there in Arizona. And like I said, those first 6 weeks, if you can go get this guy at a decent price right now, you could probably package 2 second-round picks or second and a third and a fringe player and go after him. This guy here, especially if you get him and then you don't really like what you're seeing, but he's still putting up points, he's a guy that you guys can get out of going after week 6 or before week 6 when Hopkins comes back. But, I mean, Hollywood going into that situation just screams opportunity to me. And then the other one is a guy that I loved coming out last year. I was really, really high on. I actually got him in our rookie draft. I got him in the second round because of where he fell. He fell to Baltimore, where he has running back Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. So he missed. It's Rashad Bateman. He missed the first few games last year due to injury, so he missed most of training camp and everything. He missed the first 5 games. But when he came back, he saw 6 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets in his first 5 weeks back. So, I mean, the guy's getting targets. He finished as playing in 12 games. He's finished as wide receiver 69 in PPR leagues. This guy's going to get open. He's moving into the number 1 spot where I just said 145 targets were just vacated when Brown went over to Arizona. Bateman's stepping into that role right now. He has great route running ability. He has great hands, and like I said, he gets a full offseason with this. This is a guy that if the owner of him doesn't know really what he's got, if he hasn't done much research on Bateman, I did my research prior to the rookie draft, and I really loved his route running ability in his hands. If who owns him is like, oh, this guy's a Baltimore Raven wide receiver, I can't name anybody really on there, you could turn a late second-round pick into Bateman. And in my mind, he's probably better than most of the receivers you're going to get at that area. But, I mean, this is a guy here that, like I said, he's stepping into 145 vacated targets. And Duvernay is the number 2, who's been there, 3 years now, and he's the return man. The rest of the wide receiver core is questionable now. So, I mean, I just think that you trade away a aging running back or wide receiver to a contending team, you can go ahead and get Bateman out. And, I mean, he's 22 years old, so he's got plenty of time left to fully develop. And the other thing that I really love about Bateman is with all his contracts and guaranteed monies going to these quarterbacks and everything, there's no guarantee Lamar's still in Baltimore next year. Do they really want to fork out that much money for a guy that just runs most of the time? Do they really want to fork it out to a running back quarterback here? So, I mean, that's also up in the air, too, and that's one of the reasons I absolutely love being able to buy Rashard Bateman this early before we know exactly what's going on. And even if Jackson stays there, we know he's going to have to throw the ball eventually, and who's it going to go to? Probably Bateman with
Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews, but yes.
Lamar Walker or Brant talks about Lamar Jackson and our kind of distaste for him on this podcast. This goes back to the early days of the Fatboyz Fantasy podcast before we got on with the Fantasy Holics. We have had many strong debates on Lamar Jackson, and typically that Lamar Jackson's one of the very few players that Brant and I typically agree on wholeheartedly. And it goes with saying, yes, Lamar Jackson is great for fantasy for himself. Not great for a whole lot else. Yes, he was great with Mark Andrews last year, but you are talking about a guy who takes off and runs more often than he passes the ball effectively. We'll see if that gets better. Maybe it's a contract year. Maybe he'll step up and have the best year of his career, and he'll slow down and pass a little bit more. And I don't know. We'll see. Baltimore's kind of a lot of people like to shy away from the New York Jets offense. I think maybe with the exception of Mark Andrews and maybe Rashad Bateman, I'd rather own them than I wouldn't. But I'd rather own Jets pass catchers than I would people catching the ball for Lamar Jackson. So just to put a little context out there as to where the Fatboyz feel about Lamar Jackson, it's that he is a running back hiding at the quarterback position. And if you own Lamar Jackson and you get to plug a running back in at your quarterback position, you're very happy every week because he puts up great numbers. But for a quarterback and for fantasy purposes with the players around him, not the greatest.
Absolutely. So at my tight end, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off you with this Texans offense. You've already said there's
two Texans?
Two Texans.
And the Dynasty Darlings
This
episode?
guy right here might end up being on your waivers. I refuse to let him go. Brevin Jordan, the tight end there, he sat at the bottom of the depth chart and worked his way up all year. He was active the first five games, didn't see it. It was inactive for 6 and 7. Then all of a sudden, week 8, he come out of nowhere with a 14-point fantasy game. Everyone's gone except for Farrell Brown. Farrell Brown didn't do anything last year. Reverend Jordan is you said it already. You got Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, Mechie if he's back healthy. But you got this tight end here who could easily, with the way that tight ends go, I mean, you got your studs that are going to be far and above your top 5 that are above and beyond your top 5. This guy could easily creep into the top 10 of tight ends. And once again, they're going to be down. They're going to have to pass the ball. Brevin Jordan could be sitting there on your waiver wire, and that way you could have a tight end that you could possibly plug in and not have to worry about, oh, man, I don't have a top 5 tight end, blah, blah, blah. But you have that tight end to bridge you into it so you're not getting beat 25, 30 points. So you're not streaming every week. This guy could be a very consistent tight end in fantasy.
Yeah, he definitely could be. And I know you've been high on him since his Miami days, University of Miami, that is. My tight end is another player who's young, going into his 3rd year in the league, coming out of Notre Dame. And I'm referring to Cole Kmet. Listen, the Chicago Bears Chicago Bears team did little to address their offense. Didn't get a whole lot more protection for Justin Fields. Vallis Jones is who they added to their pass catching core. Not somebody that I'm overwhelmed by. And Allen Robinson left, Jimmy Graham left. You're talking about 89 targets that are gone there. And Cole Kmet had 93 targets last year already. And he finished as the tight end 21 last year with 0 touchdowns on the season. That's not going to happen again this year.
Definitely going to have to go up.
And, you're getting, a new coach in and Matt Eberflus. You got, the new front office in. They're going to really want to see what they have in Justin Fields this year because, let's be honest, with what that Chicago Bears team has turned into, I wouldn't be shocked to see them have a top 10 pick next year's draft. I think next year they have their first round back from the Justin Fields trade. I'm not saying you want to move on from Justin Fields this early, but I'm saying it's something that it may be on the Bears' mind to take a look at if Justin Fields has a bad year. So I'm looking for the coaching staff to put Justin Fields in some great spots. And what better way to get a quarterback going than getting his tight end open in the red zone? Cole Kmet's a guy I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. I went and acquired Cole Kmet. I traded Mike Gesicki in my Dynasty League this year because I believe that Cole Kmet's going to be, serviceable in Dynasty. And this is a guy whose value is almost non-existent. You're talking about getting, a late 2nd round pick in the rookie draft if you're only in a 2 round. If you're in a 3, 4, 5 round, I'm talking whatever your latest pick is. This is something you could ship Cole Kmet, because let's be honest, if somebody has Cole Kmet, he's not their tight end one. There's a lot of, for instance, in the league I own him, he's my second tight end behind George Kittle. In the other dynasty league I'm a part of, he's the second tight end on the roster to Travis Kelce. So, a lot of people aren't going to have Cole Kmet as a guy that they're going to really covet, that they wouldn't potentially trade a late, rookie pick for. This is another guy that I have, and it all depends on where your value is or how you evaluate, but where you place the emphasis on positions. But Ramondre Stevenson, and again, this is not to knock Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson was fine last year. Ramondre Stevenson also has Damian Harris to compete with, Pierre Strong now, James White's still there. So I bring him up because the value he holds is still very similar to that of Cole Kmet. I'd rather have Cole Kmet than Ramondre Stevenson if I'm given the option of a potential tight end 1 or a running back maybe 3 or 4. And that's if he becomes the guy in New England, because it's been a long time since New England's had a guy that's been great for fantasy. You got to go back to what? C.J. Dillon, or maybe the 1 year of LeGarrette Blount where he had all the carries and all the goal line numbers. Cole Kmet's just a guy that I'm willing to take a gamble on, especially for the price. It's non-existent. In a lot of dynasty leagues, he very well may be on the waivers and on short benches. And this, if you were somebody that had Gronk as your tight end all this time, and maybe you're still sitting there going, Gronk's gonna come back, he's gonna go for Brady, one with Brady one more year. I'm not sure he is, and maybe you get Cole Kmet as an insurance policy if your waivers are open and not closed at this time. I don't know, but Cole Kmet's a guy. If he's on my waivers, I'm not even hesitating. I'm not giving anybody else a chance to take him. I'm scooping him up. If he's available for a real late rookie pick, or a fringe drop candidate off my team, I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to at least contact whoever owns Cole Kmet and find out what's the price tag, because it's definitely at the very least worth kicking the tires on.
Absolutely. So we talk about guys on waivers, and I know our league, we close all free agency and all waivers until after we complete our rookie draft. So I want to talk about a couple guys that maybe we have in mind. Maybe you're sitting there out on your waivers. Maybe your waivers are open and you guys can go out and grab a couple of these guys. Just stash on the end of the bench type guys that could be poised to have a great breakout year. One of the first one, I've already said his name, Duvernay there in Baltimore. I understand it's still Lamar Jackson. Duvernay's been there. He does know the system. He's a guy that you can stash on the end of the bench, and possibly he could end up being a bye week fill-in. Another guy that is also there in Baltimore is Tylan Wallace. He came out and he was touted as one of the top 10 wide receivers coming out last year. Came from Oklahoma State. He got hurt in his senior year, missed a lot of the time. I believe he got dinged up again in the bowl game prior to the draft, or prior to the pro day and the draft and the combine and all that. So, but those two guys right there, you could be sitting on your waivers, and if you have an open roster spot, those are two guys that I wouldn't mind tossing a dart at. Like you said, maybe this is the year Lamar Jackson figures out how to pass the ball. Doubt it, but these are guys that I could definitely throw a dart at.
Not going to hold my breath there.
Yeah.
I'd pass out.
Yeah.
One wide receiver that I really like this year is a guy that I've liked a lot in the past as well, but his injuries have just been too much for him to overcome. But he's going to have the best quarterback of his short career, and that's Paris Campbell. If Paris Campbell's sitting out there on your waivers, this is a guy that's definitely worth a dart throw. He's never finished better in PPR than 130th wide receiver overall, because he's never played more than 7 games in a season. He's saying he's healthy. The coaching staff's saying he's healthy. And now you're talking about bringing in a brand new quarterback and Matt Ryan to that system. Not brand new quarterback, obviously, but Michael Pittman should be the guy by all respect. He should be, right? But you've also got Paris Campbell that could get some targets. You've got the tight end position that could get some targets. Paris Campbell's healthy. He's going into his 4th season. If this is the year that he's finally healthy, this could be a guy that you're extremely excited to own, and you very well may be very happy with what that translates to. He's had some good games in his career when he's played. Week 1 of 2020, he went for 9. He had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 71 yards. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's gonna be on your waivers. I doubt anybody's holding him at this point. He's only got 1 career touchdown reception to speak of, so it's not like he's touchdown dependent. But this is a guy that, when you don't know what an offense is going to look like with a new quarterback, it's worth taking a dart throw and at least holding him for the first couple of weeks of the season. I mean, he very well may be a drop, but we all know during the season you need drops anyway. Another guy I have is Tim Patrick for Denver. It's another one that's probably on your waivers, but again, brand new quarterback coming into that Denver offense. Again, it should be some form of Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, who the one is. But there's also KJ Hamler. There's also Tim Patrick. We don't know who that guy's going to be. So these are guys that if they're on your waiver, you got empty roster spots. Maybe you don't have a lot of picks in the draft, and you got some free spots to move. Again, another player worth picking up just to wait and see at the very least what that Denver offense looks like moving forward.
Absolutely. Two other guys are from your Falcons. So it's Brian Edwards and Auden Tate. Both guys signed in the offseason. I understand they drafted Drake London. London's the one. Pitts is your tight end. 2/slot/ wherever else Pitts decide to line up during that. But
maybe quarterback this year. I don't know.
Maybe quarterback. I mean, it can't be any worse than Lamar Jackson. But
what's his name does it really effectively for New Orleans.
Used to. He's now a backup tight end. Taysom Hill.
Thank you. My goodness, that was alluding to no other.
Just keep it in the conference, right? You guys all do it in the division? Yeah. But Auden Tate and Brian Edwards. Brian Edwards he was drafted, I believe, was 4th round.
Randy Owens.
Randy Owens is what he was touted as by old Gruden there in Las Vegas. This guy, he's a big body wide receiver. He's going in. He can win the jump balls. Well, guess what? Mariota likes to throw them jump balls a lot. This guy could end up being a fringe flex start for you guys, a bye week fill in. Auden Tate's another one that's been around the league and has seen, he's seen bad quarterback play or average quarterback play, I guess, with Andy Dalton. He wasn't ever that bad. But still, he played with average quarterbacks. He had a great one, I think, 1 year with Burrow before Burrow got hurt. But Tate's another guy that could just, walk into a nice little role there for Atlanta. I mean, that's one camp that I'm anxious to see how that plays out with all the wide receivers you guys did add.
The last player I want to bring up is back to the tight end position. Maybe you're looking at it and you don't want to trade for a guy like Cole Kmet. Odds are this guy's probably on your waivers because when Atlanta drafted Kyle Pitts, this guy's value kind of tanked, obviously. I'm talking about Hayden Hurst, the tight end 9 from the season prior to Kyle Pitts getting drafted in Atlanta, who is now the tight end 1 in Cincinnati after C.J. Uzman left and went to New York Jets. So this is a guy who's going to walk in, have a chance to be the tight end 1 for one of the better offenses in football next year, has Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. Joe Burrow's at a point in his career where I hate to knock Matt Ryan, but Joe Burrow may be a better quarterback at this point, with arm strength and arm talent. And obviously Hayden Hurst and starting his career in Baltimore, we don't need to speak about what the quarterback play looked like there. But this is a guy that if you're, running back play. This is a guy that if he's sitting on your waivers, and again, maybe you're a little shaky at tight end, maybe you don't have one of those, top 5 guys and you're kind of streaming it each week and throwing different darts at it. This may be a guy that you want to pick up. Again, at least hold him on your bench and your roster until you see what the season looks like. Maybe he's an afterthought in the Cincinnati offense. Who knows? But if he's somebody that, comes in and he's getting, 6-7 targets a week, turning it into 4 or 5 catches and work around the goal line, it's definitely worth rostering.
Absolutely. Hayden Hurst has shown that he can do it, and now he's going into a pass-happy offense with Joe Burrow. It's absolutely amazing situation for him to excel again. Now, I'm going to butcher this name. I'm going to say 2 names for tight ends that you guys can look at. Albert O.
Okay, good. One of them.
Yeah. There in Denver, and also Greg Dulac, who they drafted. Both those tight ends there in Denver are going to see targets from Russell Wilson. We all know Seattle, and they love their tight ends. Russell Wilson does love his tight ends over the middle of the field. And so one of those guys is going to emerge. Albert O is my guess to be this year's tight end for the Broncos because we never normally see a rookie tight end just burst onto the scene. And it always takes them a year or two to get their feet underneath them in the NFL. Albert O is a guy that I'm willing to pick up off my waivers if he's sitting there, and I'm willing to stash him on the end of my bench just so I don't have to stream tight ends week to week, or when they get into a matchup where that is he is my streaming option, and I'm not letting him go back and forth, drop an ad, and praying that somebody's on the waivers. You got anything to add with him? I know he's a Mizzou boy.
Mizzou, man, I don't know. I loved Alberto coming out. He had some good weeks when Noah Fant wasn't playing, and a couple good weeks when Noah Fant was playing. He'd get in there and steal a touchdown or whatever away from Noah Fant. And we all know that Russ does indeed like his tight ends. So whichever one of these two tight ends emerges is going to have some fantasy relevant weeks. It just, obviously they're not, the super sexy names. They're not the high draft picks. But, whichever one kind of emerges and gets Russ's trust and Russ can look for as a bailout option when he scrambles out of the pocket. And, it's again, we don't know what that offense is going to look like. We don't know who the guy is. We have our ideas and our expectations, but that doesn't mean those are going to come true. So again, taking a dart throw at one of these offenses where a new quarterback's coming into a brand new system with brand new targets and no level of comfortability with any of them, it's worth owning one just to see, well, does this guy have a chance to be part of this offense? Does he have a chance to have fantasy relevancy? And with both of these guys, I definitely wouldn't recommend owning both of them. If I had to pick one, it'd be Alberto, just because he's had some time in the NFL. He's adjusted, like you said, with the exception of, your Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth last year. Tight end is a position that typically takes a little while to develop. And Alberto's going into his, third year?
I believe it is his
third year.
Yes.
Third year in the NFL. So he's going to have, the game speed down. He's going to have, his rolls down, his playbook down. He shouldn't have anything to hold him back this year. He should be able to get out there and show what he's capable of. So, again, if Russell Wilson ends up falling in love with this guy, it's definitely worth owning him.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up here for us, for the Fat Boys. You guys, as always, check out Dynasty Wins Fantasy with Seth Berger there on the Fantasyholics podcast site. It's definitely a new...
Defense.
What did I say?
Dynasty.
Oh, I'm sorry. Defense Wins Fantasy. Wow. Still rolling ours right on into it. Defense Wins Fantasy. Check that out with Seth. It's definitely a new way to look at fantasy football, adding IDP players rather than just your normal defenses if you still play with defenses. But defensive players definitely is a way to spice up your fantasy leagues.
I've definitely have found myself listening to Seth's podcast, definitely to support him, because I don't play in any IDP leagues, but it's definitely something that's starting to spark my interest a little bit. It's interesting to see where these defensive rookies fall in dynasty drafts and things like that, and it's definitely something that's piquing my interest, and I feel a little more educated about it after listening to Seth, because again, I really had no clue. I've never tried an IDP league that I've been interested in. I've done some free ones just to see what they look like, but you know how a free league goes. If it's not with a bunch of your friends or family, you kind of quit paying attention. Oh, yeah. But it's definitely, after listening to Seth, I know more about these rookie defensive players coming in than I did, because when you're neck deep on typical fantasy, you don't do a lot of research on defensive rookies unless they happen to go to your favorite team. So it's definitely eye-opening, definitely a good listen. He's a smooth talker, somebody easy to listen to. So
absolutely,
go give it a shot. If you've got any interest in defensive players at all, it's definitely worth listening to.
Even if you don't feel like you have an interest right now, check out one of his casts. I bet it will spark your interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely, like you said, I've never really had that interest. I've listened to his. It's definitely sparked my interest, and definitely debating on probably getting into an IDP league to check it out this year. That about sums it up, guys. Thanks for giving us a listen. Hit us up in the comments for anything you want to hear and have us cover. Like I said, next week we're going to cover Dynasty trade players to trade away in Dynasty. Wow, stuttering
Some
here.
Dynasty distractions.
Distractions, yes.
So definitely look forward to being back with you guys next Tuesday. We appreciate you guys listening, throwing some support our way. And again, like Brant said, if there's anything you're interested in hearing us talk about, don't hesitate to drop it. We love interacting with you guys. So.